My name is Karras, and this is my story. Before I start, I want to say that papu in Greek means grandfather, and yaya in Greek means grandmother. I'm going to start with my dad's side of the family. And my dad's dad, my papu Pete, he grew up in a small village called Alea. So fast forward a couple years to World War II, and it's ending. So after World War II ended in Greece and in Europe, a civil war in Greece broke out. At this point, my papu and his whole family decided that it's time to leave Europe. So, slowly, one by one, the family members started coming to America. My papu, however, was the last to come. So he had to travel from Alea to Argos, which is about an 8-hour walk. And then from Argos, he had to catch a bus to Athens. And from Athens, he had to go on boat to America. So when he got to America, he had to travel through Ellis Island. And at this point, he had family in Dayton already, so they had a plane ticket set up for him and all of his paperwork to get into the country. So he ended up traveling to Dayton, where he got his first job when he was about 25 or 26. And he was just bussing tables, washing dishes, mopping floors. So him and his whole family were all working separate jobs, just trying to save up as much money as possible. Because none of them had an education or anything. I think my papu went up to second grade or something. So soon enough, they had enough money to buy a little plot of land where they would hand build their own grocery store called IGA. And this opened in 1957. So here is when I'm going to stop and now move to my yaya side. So my yaya Lula lived in the same village as my papu Pete, Alea, and they were kind of neighbors. So she had an uncle that lived in West Virginia at the time. He moved to America a few years back to work in the coal mines. So he sent an invitation to my yaya's brother to move to West Virginia in America for opportunity. However, she didn't get an invitation. So a few years later, she decided that she wanted to move to America. But before she left, she was talking with my papu Pete, and they kind of made an agreement that if they both went to America and they met back up and they weren't married, then they would get married. So she traveled the same way that my papu Pete did. She had to go from Alea to Argos, which was the 8-mile walk or 8-hour walk, then to Athens by bus. Except she took a plane to New York. So when she arrived in New York, same thing as my papu, her family had arrangements for her to move to West Virginia. While in West Virginia, she worked at a restaurant with her brother. And at this point, my papu Pete, who lived in Dayton, had found out that my yaya was in America. So he started making arrangements to go see her in West Virginia to see if it still was going to work out. They were going to get married. So after a couple times visiting her, they decided that it was going to work out. They liked each other. So my yaya decided to move to Dayton. So they got married in Dayton, and my yaya started working at the grocery store, IGA. And that's kind of where they settled down. IGA closed only in 1997, so it was open for a very long time. So this is when I'm going to get into my other side of the family. So now moving on to my mom's side of the family, I'm going to start with my yaya Tammy. So my yaya Tammy lived in a little village in Greece called Andritsina, and when she was 8, her parents got divorced. At this time, that was extremely scandalous, so my yaya's mom and my yaya's sister moved to Athens and soon moved to America. So my yaya ended up staying in Andritsina with her brother and her dad, and she ended up falling in love with her brother's best friend, Vasily. However, Vasily did not love her and actually was in love with her best friend. So through the mixture of her missing her mom and her sister and not being able to have Vasily, she decided to move to America. So it's kind of same as last time. She had to go from Andritsina to Athens by bus and from Athens to New York by plane. So when she arrived in New York, in the airport, she got extremely scared. She didn't know the language. She didn't know what was going on. So she went into the bathroom and she hid in a stall for up to 12 hours. Obviously, she missed a bunch of her flights. And soon enough, she started hearing her name over the intercom. And so she went out and she saw that there was a Greek translator there waiting for her to help her get on her flight to Battle Creek, Michigan. So when she arrived in Battle Creek, she was with her mom and her sister. And her mom decided to try to put her back in high school because she didn't finish high school in Greece. However, she couldn't completely make it through high school because she didn't know the language. So now I'm going to move to my papu on my mom's side. So my papu Jim was not actually born in Greece. He was born and raised in Toledo. And he actually graduated from the University of Toledo. So he was the one that went to college. And at the age of 15, he started working in the Kmart industry. So fast forward about 10 years. So now he's about 25 years old. And he got an upgrade to be the manager at the Kmart in Battle Creek, where my yaya lived. So while in Battle Creek, he decided to go to church, and there he saw my Yaya Tammy, and he ended up finding out who my Yaya Tammy's mom was, and he went up to my great Yaya and was like, "Hey, I kind of like your daughter." And my great Yaya went to my Yaya Tammy and was like, "There's this new guy in town. His name is Jim. You're gonna marry him." So it was kind of an arranged marriage. But at the time, my Yaya Tammy was like, "No, I'm not. I'm in love with Vasily. I'm going to go back to Greece and live with Vasily." But my great Yaya was like, "No, you're marrying Jim." So my great Yaya had invited my papu Jim over to meet my Yaya Tammy. And my Yaya didn't want to meet him so bad, she literally went and hid in a tree. Soon enough, she got down from the tree, and she ended up liking him, and they got married and settling in Lansing, Michigan. There, my Yaya became a nurse. Now, remember, she didn't go to high school, but she did take classes because she wanted to be a nurse that bad. And my papu Jim remained in the Kmart business and became very high in the rankings. So in Lansing, they had my aunt, my mom, and my two uncles. So now to my mom and my dad. So fast forward a couple years to when my mom is a sophomore in college at Michigan State. So at the time, her brother George was working on being a plastic surgeon, so he was doing his residency in Dayton. So long story short, my mom and my Yaya Tammy got into a fight, and my mom was like, "That's it, I'm moving down to Dayton with George." And at the time, she didn't really think she was going to stay there for a while. She thought it was just going to be a week trying to prove a point to her mom. Turns out she ends up staying there. So she went to church in Dayton, and that's where my Yaya Lula, my dad's mom, saw her. And they kind of start chatting a little bit, and my Yaya Lula went back to my dad and was like, "There's this new Greek girl in town, she's really tall, she's really pretty, you should go talk to her." And my dad was like, "Nah, I don't really want to." So fast forward again to the Oktoberfest in Dayton, and my dad was working in the Euro booth there. And my mom and her brother and a couple of their friends went to the Oktoberfest, and they were just hanging out at the Euro booth. And my dad was trying to be really cool, so he tried like juggling lemons, and it actually ended up that he missed a lemon, and it ended up hitting my mom in the head. And my mom turns around to her brother and some of their friends and was like, "Yo, who is that guy? Like, he's really weird." And then my uncle was like, "That's George Karras. That's the people that own IGA, the grocery store." So my mom was like, "Oh, I'm staying here. Like, I need a job. Maybe I can go get a job there." So my mom goes to IGA and meets with my Yaya to get a job, and my Yaya recognizes her immediately, gives her the job without application. But at the time, my dad was in New York City. So my Yaya said, "Okay, you're going to start working when George gets back." So soon enough, my dad gets back from New York, and they both start working as cashiers at IGA, and they start going on dates, and they start really liking each other, and they get married and live in Dayton. So this is when I move into the picture. So my mom and dad have my sister Aaliyah, me, and my little brother Tyke. And growing up, we all went to Bellbrook public schools and up until 8th grade. And there was really no point in why we moved to Miami Valley. We didn't really know anyone here. We didn't know much about the school other than it was just a great school, great education, great opportunity. So we just randomly decided to come to MBS, and it was the best decision I've ever made.